Caribbean businesses are playing among giants. Access to capital is an essential part of doing business. Businesses need access to debt, equity, credit, and smart capital. When we look at Guyana's stock exchange market, we can see that their market capitalization stands at a little below 2 billion US dollars. When we look at Trinidad and Tobago, which is the largest stock exchange market in the Caribbean based on market capitalization, we can see that they have about $17.65 billion under asset management. Now, when we look at the United States of America, we are seeing that they have approximately 25.9 trillion US dollars in market capitalization. This definitely speaks of a tremendous capital advantage. Among Caribbean nations, it is absolutely necessary for us to raise and amplify the conversation around capital markets and capital access for businesses. The life, the success, the growth, and regional and international integration of businesses depends on access to capital. We at Global Capital Inc. and 10X Branding and Marketing LLC out of New York invite you to join this conversation. Be blessed and see you on the other side. Conducted by Global Capital Inc. and 10X Branding and Marketing LLC out of New York is showing that millions of people across the world, both the entrepreneur and the private individual, they buy a debt without understanding the total implication in relation to that debt. So today, we will be examining how to buy business debt. What are some of those things that you should think about when you are attempting to buy a debt? A few things that I want you to keep in mind is what is a good debt and what is bad debt. We will examine those things today to ensure that you have a clear mental picture of the things that you should look at the next time you're going to buy either a mortgage debt or a business debt. But just before I get into today's program, do permit me to introduce myself. My name is Gary Thompson. I'm a business development consultant by profession. I'm a humanitarian by nature, and I'm the self-published best-selling author for several books, including Billionaire Codes and Manager's Toolkit. I'm also the author for the new book titled 10X Branding and Marketing Blueprint. That's a very unique book that teaches you from A to Z to start a business and scale a business with local, regional, and international relevance. Today's topic is how to buy business debt. What are some of the first things that you should consider when you're going to buy a debt? Now, some of those things that you want to predetermine is whether you're buying a good debt or a bad debt. And to be able to do this and do this effectively, it's important that you pay attention to what is known as cash flow projection And secondly, to understand the market analytics. But just before we go into that, because today we're going to spend a lot of time examining these two headings, and I want to show you at the end of this program, you will be having a lot of information. So the next time that you're going to buy a business or personal debt, you know exactly what are those things to look for. Some of the other things that is important for you to look at when you're going to buy a debt are things like your pre-qualification criteria. You want to know that. We're not going to look at that today. Along with the pre-qualification criteria, you need to pay attention to things like debt lives, debt principal. The debt principal is how much you intend to borrow. You need to focus on the debt interest rate. This is key when you're going to buy a debt. Along with this, it's important for you to understand what is the debt life cycle. Absolutely necessary. And along with this is to understand the debt monthly obligation. Last but not least, some of the things you need to consider is what we call the debt cost over the debt life cycle. So those are 6 important concepts to consider when you're going to buy a debt. Perhaps over the next few days, I will examine each of them to ensure that you have a better understanding as to how you position yourself to buy a debt. But we will begin this exercise by looking at some additional important information, some of the first things that you should consider before you go to buy a debt. And one of the first things that you want to do is to be able to predetermine whether you are buying a good debt or a bad debt. Now, how can you put yourself in that position of strength to predetermine whether you're buying a good debt or a bad debt? Is there anything that you can do? Is there ways, techniques and strategies that you can apply that allows you to predetermine whether that debt is a good debt or a bad debt? The answer is yes. And one of those things that you can do to predetermine whether you are buying a good debt or a bad debt is to develop what is known as your cash flow projection or your business plan. So your cash flow projection is not only representative of the projection income that you're looking at or the income projection that you're looking at, it also looks at the steps and the game plan that you're going to be using to attract the game plan that comes into your business strategic plan. But the way in which you go about developing your cash flow projection and the business plan is what must come into serious consideration here. Now, there are 3 methods that we are seeing businesses are using to develop the cash flow projection and their business plan. One, they're using primary market intelligence, and I'll explain what that is. Secondly, they're using secondary market intelligence, and I'll explain what that is today. And last, they're using speculative data. Now, the primary market research is when you put together your team and you hit the ground. Boots are on the ground, you're in the market, and you are spending time with the market to identify your specific target market, to identify the needs and wants and expectations, to identify the size of your market, to identify the potential of the market to cash flow. And with this boots on the ground, with the level of skin that you get in the game here, it allows you to get solid market intelligence to make close to an accurate financial projection on developing that business plan. Now, this is the one that is most recommended, but largely because of the high cost associated with the market research and gathering the market intelligence, most businesses shy away from this, particularly so in their startup and incubator stage. You know, they tend to shy away from putting expenses into market research, market intelligence, which can come back to bite them in places that you don't want to be bite. So it's important to give serious consideration to primary market research before you take that debt. Now, this can make a major difference between you taking a good debt and a bad debt. The second techniques that people would use is what is known as secondary data, secondary intelligence. And secondary intelligence is where you are going to look at published data, whether in your census return or, you know, the National Library or, you know, published material that might represents the market that you want to get into and may give you certain kind of market data that will allow you to make informed and educated decisions. The challenge with secondary data is that secondary data can be both outdated, and outdated secondary data can put you into unnecessary expense, put you into unnecessary stress, and you can have a failed business because the information is not accurate. On the other hand, you can have secondary data that is reliable, and that type of secondary data is what you want to extract and use. This is also commonly used among many businesses, but you have to be certain that the data is reliable and it is updated. Perhaps this is another way in which you can cut costs against paying the premium price to do the primary market research. But we have those two. But what is laughable, and very often you find persons use what is also known as speculative data. And here is where you sit in your comfort zone and you do a market forecast. You do a financial projection that is based on speculation. No data. You just assume that the business, the market has the potential to cash flow this amount, and you develop your business plan and your financial projection based on that. This is the last thing that you want to do when you're buying a corporate debt, when you're buying business debt. When you're buying business debt, you want to be certain that you have primary market information and secondary market intelligence. Why? Because when you're buying a corporate debt, it's a debt that has to be collateralized. And the collateral that you're using may not be your personal collateral. It might be your mom, your dad, your uncle, your aunt, or a friend collateral that you are leveraging to acquire the debt. But that is one of the pre-qualification criteria. Another day we will go into all of those pre-qualification criteria. So when you buy a bad debt, in this instance, you are not only putting the principal that you would have borrowed at risk, but you're putting the asset, the equity, the collateral that your mom, dad, uncle, aunt, or friend might have lodged with the financial institution for you to access that debt portfolio. So that could be risky business. And the last thing that you want to do when you're buying a debt is to be involved and engaged in risky business that can put your mom, your dad, your uncle, your aunt, or your friend out of the dream home, their personal home. Um, this is not, a case that has never happened. We have seen these things happen so many times. Even myself, I've interfaced with persons who were, their assets were misused in these ways. And, it's very heart-rending to see the level of frustration that those people um, are going through, to know that they had their home, they were in a comfort zone, they didn't have to worry about, a roof over their head. Now they're from pillow to post, largely because they trusted someone, and that someone was engaged in speculative market analysis and buy a bad debt and mismanage the entire process. So again, when you're preparing to buy business debt, it's important for you to, first of all, put yourself in that position of strength to be able to predetermine whether you're buying a good debt or a bad debt. And when you're doing that market research and you're gathering critical market intelligence, it allows you to do strong financial projections and develop accurate business plan. Again, when you're doing secondary data analysis, you need to be certain that the data is reliable and updated data that you can use to make informed and educated business decision. You should never use speculative data when you are attempting to buy business debt. You want to be in the know. You want to get enough skin in the game. All right. So if you don't know how to do this, my best advice to you is to reach out to your financial advisors, reach out to, people like, your PFA, professional financial advisors, or personal financial advisors that can give you the right guidance in these regards. So we have looked at those three things. So the second thing that I want us to look at today is what we call the market analytics. It's important to do the market analytics. So the first thing that you're going to be doing here is what we call the cash flow projection and the business plan. The second most important thing here is to be able to do the market analytics. Now, there are two things that comes under the market analytics. May not be fully exhausted, but these are two important things that I want you to consider when you are attempting to buy business debt. The market analytics speaks to, one, you understanding the market accommodators, and two, it's about you understanding the market enablers. For example, some of the accommodators would be you understanding your target market. Who are your target market? You're able to build out a relationship with that target market. You're able to build out the value chain and build up your quality contact list. It might represent you understanding the chambers of commerce and the community development, business community development hub. It's about you understanding all of these enablers and putting yourself in a position of strength to use them. Now, depending on where you are in the world, they may have different terminologies. For example, when we look at the market enablers, in America, you might have what is known as the Small Business Development Center, the New York Small Business Development Center. And I believe that they have about 21 of them throughout the 5 boroughs in the United States. And these institutions They provide an enabling environment where they work with you to help you develop your business plan. They work with you to help you to understand, you know, proper business management processes. They help work with you to help you to understand market realities. They provide that kind of friend. In the Caribbean, in Guyana, you may have the Small Business Bureau. And again, they may provide you with some seed capital for the business. They may provide you with training for the business and to really help you to feel as though you're being enabled as a small and micro business. These are some of the things that you need to look at. While some of these institutions may not provide all of the enabling tools that you need to grow and strive and build up your brand with local, regional, and international relevance, it is still important for you to know these things, because knowing these things, it is what will help you to make an informed and educated decision about the scope of possibilities that exist here and what doesn't exist, and how much more skin you need to get into the game to be able to play the game, to win the game. And in this game that we were talking about, you want to be able to cash flow maximize, largely because you're taking a debt. Now, if you're not going to be cash flowing maximizing, you are going to be performing at a deficit as against a surplus. And any deficit performance is going to put you into bad debt. It's going to put you into stress. It's going to cause you to lose face with those people who are cheering you on. All right, because when your mom, your dad, your uncle, your aunt, and your friends invest in you, they put their asset up front for you as collateral for you, and you underperform in the cash flow and you cannot reach your monthly debt obligation, your monthly collateralized and amortized debt obligation, you put their asset at risk. So I trust that today you were able to take away a lot from this lesson, because we talked to you today about how to buy business debt. And we look at a number of things that you should look at. And let me just quickly recap those things that we would have talked about. We talked about before you buy a debt, you want to be able to predetermine whether the debt is a good debt or a bad debt. And we said that there's two important things for you to consider here. One is the cash flow projection in the business plan. And two is the market analytics. We also, at the introduction of this program, we did say that this is only the beginning of the menu of things that you must consider when you're going to buy a business debt. We look at, you must understand the pre-qualification criteria. You must have a full awareness of your debt principle. You must understand the debt interest rate. You must understand the debt life cycle. You must understand your monthly debt obligation. And you must also understand the debt cost over the debt life cycle. Now, I promise you over the next few days, I will do a deep dive into this content to ensure that you have this kind of information the next time you're going to buy a debt. Now, in the event that you need more information, I want you to feel free to inbox me or to call me. The numbers will be displayed on below this video. So feel free to reach out to us at Global Capital Inc. and 10X Branding and Marketing LLC out of New York. Again, my name is Gary Thompson. I'm a business development consultant by profession, and I'm a self self-published best-selling author for several books, including Manager's Toolkits and Billionaire Code. I'm also the author for 10X Branding and Marketing Blueprint, the Psychology of Doing Business. Now, I want to encourage you to like, share, subscribe to this podcast. Share your thoughts with me. Let this be an interaction. Use the chat box and send your questions, send your concern, so we can have this conversation. Like us and share us on Facebook, and do the same on all the other social media platforms. Be blessed and see you in the next broadcast. Caribbean businesses are playing among giants. Access to capital is an essential part of doing business. Businesses need access to debt, equity, credit, and smart capital. When we look at Guyana's stock exchange market, we can see that their market capitalization stands at a little below 2 billion US dollars. When we look at Trinidad and Tobago, which is the largest stock exchange market in the Caribbean basin market capitalization, we can see that they have about $17.65 billion under asset management. Now, when we look at the United States of America, we are seeing that they have approximately 25.9 trillion US dollars in market capitalization. This definitely speaks of a tremendous capital advantage. Among Caribbean nations, it is absolutely necessary for us to raise and amplify the conversation around capital markets and capital access for businesses. The life, the success, the growth, and regional and international integration of businesses depends on access to capital. We at Global Capital Inc. and 10X Branding and Marketing LLC out of New York invite you to join this conversation. Be blessed and see you on the other side.